How's it going, YouTube? So, basically today, we are talking about a build in the Division. What is this funky looking build that we are looking at? This is an absolutely terrible looking build. Why would anyone ever want to use this build? Well, I'm going to break it down. So, what do we got going on here? We got a 4-piece Reclaimer, 2-piece Tac. This build is basically 3 builds, or 3 rolls I should say, 3 rolls put into one. 3 rolls, all built into one. You have a Reclaimer, you have a Tac, basically Tactician, and you also have somebody who's able to put out a significant amount of damage. Significant. Jumping right into it, let's. One thing I do want to say, quick, is please, 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 do not pay attention to that primary DPS. Do not pay attention to that toughness. You look at those 2 things and you're just going to write this build off. You're going to be like, nope, this build's trash. Hear me out, please. And wait until we get into the gameplay. I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised with how well this build actually performs. So jumping right into it, we have a classic M1A as our primary. This is a decent M1A. The 3 talents, capable, brutal, and skilled. Skilled is by far the most important talent on this weapon. What this does is, if you guys don't know, headshot kills with this weapon increase signature skill resource by 11.5%, or headshot kills with this weapon reduce the cooldown of your signature skill by 11.5%. With this build, it takes, I believe, 4 kills, 4 headshot kills to get my T back. That's pretty fucking wild. That's pretty crazy, actually, if we actually think about it for a second. Moving into our secondary, why the fuck am I using a Caduceus? Am I absolutely absurd? Am I fucking crazy? Why would I ever use a Caduceus? Especially a gear score 182 weapon? Like, what? The only reason I'm using this is for cool-headed. This is literally the only reason why we are using this. What cool-headed does, if you don't know and can't read, performing headshot reduces all skill cooldowns by 5.5%. So, and that has nothing to do with our signature skill. If I back up for a second here, I'm running smart cover and pulse. So basically, if I'm in a jam and I need to get my cooldowns back, I need my pulse, or for whatever reason my smart cover isn't up, which it pretty much always is with this build, but if it isn't, we can headshot some mobs and get our cooldowns back faster. So it's kind of just a battery. It's a utility weapon. The weapon that we're going to be primarily using in this build is the M1A. One other thing I want to say about this build super fast is these items are not optimized. This build could be a lot better. But these pieces that I had were things that I literally just threw into my stash, thinking, hey, I might use Reclaimer sometime. So here we go. Keep that in mind. These items could be a lot better. So looking at our chest piece, we have a electronics Reclaimer chest piece. I'm sure right away you guys notice the major, we don't have armor. That is not ideal, right? I would much rather have armor instead of protection from elites. But what had happened was this piece was stamina. I needed to recal it to electronics because I needed the electronics. So unfortunately we didn't get armor on the chest piece. But we definitely would want armor on the chest piece if we could do that. Moving on to the mask. This is a firearms mask with skill power. The firearms could be stamina, and this is something I also wanted to mention about this build. If you guys look at my firearms, I'm at 4,054 firearms, right? Really high firearms. Looking at my stamina, I have absolutely no stamina. So if you guys were to actually try this build, you don't necessarily have to build it the way I built it. You could give up, firearms and go for more stamina. But anyways, we were running a firearms mask with skill power. The skill power is an absolute must. You cannot replace this. This has to be on the mask for this build to, I guess, reach its potential. So moving on, these other two stats could also be better. Knee pads. The first thing you guys might notice, I have armor on my knee pads. I'm fucking crazy. What am I doing? Again, this was a stamina piece that I had to recal into electronics because this is a support build. Our electronics, our skill power is basically the most important thing in this build. So unfortunately, I'm stuck with armor. I would much rather this be crit damage. One nice thing about these knee pads, though, is they do have 10% enemy armor damage, which is a very good PvE stat. And if I didn't clear it, if I didn't make this clear, this is more or less a PvE build that I'm running, but you could do something very similar for PvP. You'd probably want to up your health a little bit and not worry about, you know, things like enemy armor damage, because that doesn't do any good for you in PvP. It's a PvE stat. Moving on to our backpack. This is a firearms backpack. Again, you could go for stamina if you wanted to, but the way that I play this build, I run it glass, man. I'm all about that glass. So, again, just like the mask, we have skill power as a major, and that is an absolute must. You have to have that. You cannot skimp out on that. You have to have skill power there. These other, the minor and the skill attributes could be better. Could be better. Moving on to our gloves. Our gloves, let's see here, which gloves? Yeah. So these gloves are firearms. Again, could be stamina. These are firearms though. 40% crit hit damage, 6% crit hit chance, 13% damage to elites. And if, in a perfect world, we could have everything we want, we would go for pulse crit hit damage for the skill attribute. One thing to mention about gloves, they are a big source of damage, right? You can get a lot of attributes that increase your overall damage output. So from a PvE standpoint, you're going to want 40% crit hit, you're going to want crit hit damage, you're going to want crit hit chance, damage to elites, and pulse crit hit damage. Now if this was PvP, you would get rid of the damage to elites and go for whatever your primary weapon type is, whether it be a marksman rifle, or a shotgun, or an AR, or an SMG, or whatever. So, moving on here. I showed you all my pieces. Reclaimer, 4-piece Reclaimer, right? The 2-set bonus increases support healings by 100%. That really doesn't matter for our build. I mean, it's cool, but we don't really use it with this build. The 3-set piece increases our consumable duration by 50%. That's pretty huge. That's pretty important. But the bread and butter, the reason this set is pretty fucking crazy is the 4-piece Reclaimer. Now, if you guys haven't seen 4-piece Reclaimer, we will obviously get into that once I get to the part where we do the gameplay footage or whatever. But 4-piece Reclaimer, as it reads, consumables and special ammo used now apply to the whole group and are not consumed upon use. That is pretty wild. So we basically have unlimited fucking fire bullets, I'm stupid. Incinerate bullets, explosive bullets, things like that. That's pretty wild. And then 2-piece tack. The reason we're running 2-piece tack is for the extra skill power that it provides. We're aiming for high skill power with this build because we want to cap out our skills. Which brings me to our next topic. So the 2 skills that I run with this build is Pulse, using the mod Tactical Scanner. And if you take a look at the crit hit chance here, we are capped at 40%. That is the cap. It does not go any higher. As far as crit hit damage, we're sitting on 90%. That goes all the way up to 100. So we're not capped. Again, this build is not optimized. It could be a little bit better. And with an optimized build, we could have this capped. But 90% nonetheless is still very good. Moving on to Smart Cover. We're running Recharger. The reason I like to use Recharger is it basically, I'll just read it. Allies using a reinforced cover slowly recover their health and get their skill cooldowns decreased. So it decreases cooldowns. You can tell the difference, you know, if you were to use one of these other ones and then try this one. And again, you guys will see when we're actually, you know, doing the gameplay. We get this back basically right as it breaks. So there's never really a time where you don't have smart cover. You're always going to have it, which is very important because you're running a glass build, right? Looking at our damage resistance, this increases our damage resistance by 72.20%. That's massive. Massive! And it also increases our damage by 50%. If you guys don't know, and I'm sure you do, but if you don't know what Tactical Link does, it is a damage increasing buff that increases your damage by 50%. So going back to the smart cover, this is basically like having a Tactical Link on at all times. That is fucking crazy, right? A huge boost in damage. Moving on to Tactical Link, this is our third skill that we run. This is our signature skill. This is a 50% damage buff, like I just said, and a 20% crit hit chance buff. Pretty massive, right? One thing to mention, did I already talk about it? I honestly can't even remember. It takes me four headshot kills with that skilled M1A to get this back. So we basically have this all the time, which is awesome, especially in a group environment. It not only buffs us, just like the smart cover and the pulse, but it's buffing our entire team. So this build, like I said earlier, is a support build, and it makes your entire team that much better, which is awesome. I forgot to mention it, so we'll hop right into it. Again, this is my first YouTube ever, baby. This is my first YouTube video ever, baby. I'm gonna make mistakes, but bear with me, guys. I'm doing my best. So if you look at the health, right? The toughness is 125k. We know that's not nothing special, right? Everyone and their mother's pretty much above 400k at this point. But that's just kind of the meta or whatever. That's the trend. But this build's running 38k health, and I guarantee you, some of you are probably like, Chappie, you're fucking nuts. You're crazy. Why the fuck would you do that? But the deal with this game is, with unoptimized gear, you can't have the best of everything, right? I can't have tons of firearms, tons of stamina, tons of skill power. You got to balance it. So I balance my guy to do a lot of damage and provide really strong buffs at the sacrifice of health. My armor is 69%, below cap, right? Some people freak out about that. You're not even armor capped. I understand that, but I'm running smart cover, right? We talked about smart cover. I'll quickly go back to it in case anyone forgot. Smart cover is increasing our damage resistance by 72.20%. So as long as we're on smart cover, it does not matter that we aren't armor cap. And I don't know what else to talk about. I think that's about it, guys. So let's get into the gameplay footage. If you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And yeah, thanks for checking it out.